I realize I can't speak on mute, even though I seem to be able to speak through almost anything. Mita, thank you for always dropping the mic. In all the work that you do, and in all of your magnificent writing, you are a rock star in so many ways. And your story always touches me, even though I know it so well. So I appreciate it. And thank you for your story on allyship and your message. And with that, I'm so proud to turn, can you call it the floor? I'm so proud to turn the screen over to my own colleague, the magnificent Zamina Ladakh.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you to both Kimberly and Mita for what you shared. So my name is Zamina Ladakh, and it's funny, Mita, you said something about names. I'm always correcting people, and I know it's a standing joke that people all say like Zamina, drives me crazy. My name is Zamina Ladakh, and I am an HR consultant and talent strategist with Assemble HR, and I work directly with Jill. I focus on, just doing a dance. My focus is on culture, talent development, and something that I'm extremely passionate about, diversity and inclusion. So I'm going to be honest with you, I have been struggling on what I want to share today for a few reasons. Number one, you know, I'm an emotional being, and the likelihood of me shedding a tear or two is really high. And you know what? I'm not going to apologize for it because it just proves that I'm strong. I also struggled because what if there's somebody on this call that doesn't want to hear what I have to say? What if there's somebody on this call, not apologizing. What if there's somebody on this call that gets offended? But you know what? About times I've gone through where I've been offended and my feelings have been hurt and I didn't say anything. And this is what I have been feeling and this is what I have experienced. And so I'm going to share, you know, similar to what you heard with Mita and with Kimberly, there have been so many experiences in my life. And the way that I look at those experiences today, right, because hindsight is always 20/20, is that those experiences have continued to help me build up the courage to be able to stand up for myself. When I entered the workforce, and I had just started to wear my job, also known as a scarf, at that time, and I was 21. And I remember coming into the workplace and the owner of this company saying to me, "Your scarf is making people feel uncomfortable." And my thought was, oh my God, first of all, I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable. Okay. I don't want thank you. I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable. And number two, I don't want to lose my job. So what did I do? I compromised my beliefs and I took off my scarf in the workplace. I'd come to work with my scarf on. I'd walk into the office, take it off. I'd walk out at the end of the day without my scarf, get into my car and put my scarf back on. And let me tell you, this is a reality for quite a few Muslim women who do observe hijab, because you are scared of what other people's perceptions are. And I went along with this for a few months. I didn't say anything though. And so that gnawed at me for so long. And ultimately, obviously, I left. And then I moved to New York, thinking that I am in a place where it is diverse and people are open-minded and it's not the South. And unfortunately, I experienced within HR, an HR leader saying some not so great things to me. I am a huge fan of softball. I have a wicked arm. I was on third base because I have an arm that can get to first. Although I'm sure my husband is somewhere here shaking his head because for some reason I've lost my athletic ability. That's fine. And I was suited up in my jersey and I was repping the company, so excited. And this leader said to me, "Zamina, are you going to play in your scarf?" And I said, yeah, why? Like, I'm so excited. And his response to me was, well, isn't the team going to be nervous? Aren't they going to be scared you have a bomb under there or something? Yes. Yeah. And while I'm 90% sure that he meant that as a joke, that still hurt. And I didn't say anything. But somebody else was there, and her response to me was, I'm so sorry, just please ignore him. You know, that's just who he is. And that's the problem, right? They're really good at what they do, but those other things, the lack of leadership skills, the insensitivity, the ignorance, we'll forget about that. I digress a little, I know, but all of these experiences have brought me to the moment where I had the courage to stand up for myself and to say something out loud. So a few years after that, I realized that I was more of a token for my diversity, or I was filling a quota. And how I came upon that realization was the words that were said to me didn't match up to the actions. There were some actions, but those actions was more of a showcase. They put me on stage in front of hundreds of people. Hey, look, we have a diverse person on stage. They set me up to have intentional conversations with senior leadership. That's amazing, right? And I appreciated it. But what was missing was the day-to-day investment in my growth. I am a driven HR professional, and I am good at what I do. And I know that I have gotten this far and have been this successful because of my ability to be phenomenal. And but these actions, or I should say inactions, made me question, why was all this happening? Was it just because of the fact that I wear a scarf and that I'm brown? Or is it because of my merit, like because of what I bring to the table? And so I decided to say something. I spoke up, and it was one of the hardest things that I have done, but I am so proud of myself for doing it and standing my ground. But I will tell you that what was really hard to swallow, because it takes a lot of courage, right, to stand up and to say something like this and to speak up for yourself. Because I don't know about you, but for me, I go through every single scenario and like, it's not me. It can't be me, right? It can't be them. It's me. It's me. But if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. And so when I said something, what I was met with at one point about certain parts of my conversation was, are you sure that happened? No, I'm not sure. And that killed me. That gutted me. And so at the end of the day, I did what I had to do.
Come back, Zamina. You're frozen and we want you back.
Am I back?
Yes, but we heard at the end of the day.
Did you hear about me saying how
I hear at the end of there's such a cliffhanger right now. At the end of the day, at the end of the day, I can look at my kids, and if my kids ever come to me with this kind of a situation, I can say to them, stand up for yourself, be unapologetic, because your experience is your experience. Thank you for listening to me. Well, first of all, I hope everyone joins me in just giving one more hearty round of applause to these three brilliant, successful, brave, amazing friends of mine. I'm so lucky to know them as friends, and it's hard for me to see them as people that have gone through what they've gone through. And when we have these conversations, it breaks me. And to hear you each tell these stories, it literally breaks me. And to see you lead as you are leading today is really beautiful. You were amazing in telling your stories, and I'm so proud of all of you. So thank you. And so Zamina, I'd also like to share that I've now beaten you. I'm the first one to cry, so thank you. I'm going to ask a couple of questions to each of you, and then I'm going to move on to some open questions that have been sent in. Kimberly, the buzzword of the day. The word is microaggressions. Can you help us understand what microaggressions actually are? Where do we find them? Why are they dangerous?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do. If anyone follows me on LinkedIn, they know I do a series called What is a Microaggression? So this is a perfect question for me. So a microaggression is a comment or a gesture, and whether it's made intentionally or not, but it's based on a stereotype or a negative assumption, right? So here's an example. I'll give you a couple examples and then I'll tell you where you see them. Here's one. So I give a speech. I'm an educated woman. I give a speech, and afterwards, people say to me, "Oh my goodness, you are so articulate," right? You read so well. You are so articulate. So I started reading when I was 2. So by the time I'm 52, I should be articulate, right? That should not be something that someone has to tell me. And by them telling me that I am articulate, basically what they are saying, and the reason that is a microaggression, is because they are saying to me, I am not accustomed, or I don't have the expectation that someone who looks like you or has your background or comes from where you live would be articulate, right? So that's one example. Another example could very easily be, there are 2 people of color in a situation, and this can happen in a school, and it actually happened to my son, so I'm going to tell you. So there's 2 in different classrooms, right? My son is tall, looks like me. There's another young man. He's shorter, and he is maybe Jill, your complexion, but they're both Black. One is from Africa, and my son is not. And my son's name is Carter, and the other young man's name was Jamal. And the teacher called my son Jamal, right? And so after the 3rd time, I said to my son, you have one more time before I go up to the school, because that's unacceptable. That is a microaggression. And so those are microaggressions that you might not even think about. But again, what you're saying is, you don't really mean enough to me for me to consider you, to see you, and to think that you are worth my time considering. Or another microaggression that could happen is, you have a Japanese student or an Asian student in your class, and then they say, you speak English so well. Well, I was born here, right? Microaggression, because the stereotype would be that a person who is of a different ethnic background would not be able to speak English. So those are microaggressions. Now, they can happen anywhere. They can happen anywhere. And I have a list that is so long of microaggressions because people are not thoughtful and they don't think about it. Now, here's why it's dangerous. They are little cuts because people don't think about them. So they're little cuts. When someone says you're so articulate, it makes you think, well, why shouldn't I be? So then that's a little cut. When someone doesn't take the time to get to know your name, then you become smaller and little cut. When someone thinks that you should have an accent when there's no reason for you to have an accent, there's a little cut. And it just continues and continues till it becomes a big wound. Because microaggressions, people don't apologize for microaggressions, right? Because they're based on ignorance. And they think that they're being funny, right? Or they think that, oh, doesn't matter, it's just a little something. But those wounds, sometimes those wounds become so deep and so painful that there is no turning back, right? And so one of the things that has been throughout everyone's conversation here is that they left a situation where they could have stayed and had an incredible career where they are. They had to leave a situation because of there were micro as well as macro aggressions that we've had to deal with as people of color. But the micro aggressions are even more dangerous because they're just little slices daily. So that's a microaggression, and that's why they're dangerous, because they can become they can become overwhelming, and that wound doesn't always heal.
Thank you, Kimberly. As you explain that, I can think of so many microaggressions that impact me personally, particularly, again, as a Jewish woman. And so many things that I sweep under the rug all the time and hide behind as a white woman. And how I just constantly let things go and don't speak up. And I want to take the time to acknowledge and thank so many people who are joining us and chatting on the side. And Diane McNeil, who has brought up that the common theme today is how often we don't say anything. How many of us, between the four of us that have told our stories, and I'm sure so many others here that just let things go. And I'm sure we could form a list today as to all the reasons that we just let it go, but we can't let it go. And I've learned from so many people in so many ways, but Kimberly, what stands out for me is some of the work we've done together, and to steal from you and then trademark you thereafter, that you teach me that it's our job to stand in the gap. And that's something you say to me often, and I heard Mita say it when you told your story, that really our job is about what we say when no one else is in the room.
Absolutely.
And that's something I urge all of us to think about as we go forward, since myself, I am so guilty of just letting it go and saying, it's not worth it, but it's worth it.
It's absolutely worth it, Jill. It is. And the other thing I want you to trademark, and then I'm going to be quiet, is ask yourself. Throughout all of this, people have asked me, I'm sure they've asked Mita, they've asked all of us, what should I, how do I feel, what do I say? My thing is ask yourself, right? Ask yourself and stand in the gap. That's it.
Thank you, Kimberly.
You're welcome.
Mita, I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about allyship. I think we've started to hear more about it as we read. There's more about it in the news. Can you talk to us about what it means to be an ally, what we expect from allies, and what this term is really about?
Absolutely. I'll make it really personal. I'm going to say, let me say, here are 3 ways you could be an ally for me. And here are 3 ways that I wish people would show up for me. And I actually I go back and forth. I don't really like the term ally. It
Mm.
seems really passive. It's like a bunch of countries getting together to sign a peace treaty. Like, what's an ally, right? An advocate is somebody who's advocating. It's allyship is passive to me, but I think there's a journey. Maybe you're an ally and then you get to be an advocate, right? I think the first thing I want to say is stop being colorblind. I was with a leader a few years ago. I was sitting there and she says to me with her lady boss or like lean in mug that she has, and she says, well, I don't see color. I don't see color. And I'm like, what color are you again? Yeah, no. And I'm just like, you know, my brownness has defined me since the day I've been born. When I walk into rooms, even before I speak, if I'm in the hallway, even before I present, that's what people see. I am brown and I am proud to be brown. And so to deny me is to deny me of my identity and my existence. So stop being colorblind. It's a lot of unlearning from being, you know, colorblind to being color aware, color brave, as Melody Hobson in her TED Talk, which if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to do. Please stop being colorblind. You can't be an ally if you can't be colorblind. So let's start there. Number two, I think it's about listening and learning. Today was an amazing opportunity, and I want to thank Jill so much because we were so nervous and she really galvanized us, and you're a magical connector, and I'm so glad we did this. And we all decided we wanted to put ourselves out there and share our stories, right? So when someone is sharing a story with you about a racist encounter they have, it is your job as an ally to honor the story and honor the truth. It is not your job to be an investigative journalist. It is not your job to, at that point, encounter with your own racist experience or your own sexist, homophobic experience that you've encountered. It is not your job to be questioning or dismissive. Well, I know Mita, and she's a really nice person. Are you sure she did that? And I think the hardest part about being an ally is you walk out with non-closure, because if I share a racist experience, I just shared so much with you. We all did. I'm just asking you to listen and learn from it. I'm not asking you to actually solve it, because there's nothing you can do to solve it at the moment. And then on the flip side is you're learning. If you can Google the best banana bread recipe in the world, you can Google how to be anti-racist. You can Google all of these things. Please don't ask me if you can use the word colored today in the United States of America. You can Google that. And no, you cannot, because please Google Jim Crow and you will understand why. But I'm just examples that I'm giving that you can continue to educate yourself, because it is not our burden or the burden of people of color, or in this situation that we're facing in the US right now in the second civil rights movement, the burden of Black colleagues and friends to constantly educate. And just know when you do that, it is trauma, and it is generational trauma that people are re-experiencing. When you think you ask a simple question like, why do Black lives matter versus all lives matter? What did you think about the George Floyd video? What about Blackout Tuesday? What are your thoughts? So just think about that. And the last thing I will say is stand up for me and stand up for others. Stand up for me when you know I'm getting paid less. Stand up for me when you know I'm getting treated differently and you see it. Stand up for me when I come out of stage. True story, off of a stage in London, back to Kimberly's microaggressions, and the first comment I get is, you speak English so well. Also getting mistaken a lot for speaking Spanish, which I don't. I wish I did. I wasted years taking French, no offense, but I should have learned Spanish, but I didn't, and I don't know how to speak Spanish, right? So we see all these things. When you see something, say something. The last thing I will tell you, it's never too late to say something. I do this in my head. I rewind things. Now my job is to help leaders and coach and say in the moment. If something happened 2 days ago and you witnessed something, it's not too late, I promise you, to go back and have that conversation and educate that person. Thank you.
I speak a little bit of Spanish if you ever need help. I spent many, many years in high school. I had a great teacher. Spent years in Spain in high school, so call me if you ever need any help.
Fantastic. Good to know. Good to know.
Anytime. Thank you, Mita. The questions that are coming in, both to me privately and also in the group chat, are amazing, and I wish we had 4 more hours. I'm already, at first I had gotten over my nerves, now I'm nervous again. Can you imagine what it would be like to be my husband? stay on mute. Okay, now, Zamina, what is the best piece of advice that you can give people that are listening today in general? Then we're going to get to some pretty basic, some pretty specific, questions. But what is the one takeaway at this point that everyone should have?
So I'm going to go off of what I shared. It's not about checking off things on a list, right? When you have a team member that you value and is diverse, don't make them feel like a quota by just checking it off. Put you in front of the CEO, check. Put you in front of XYZ, check. Put you in a program, check. It's not about that. Invest in them on a day-to-day. Check in with them, see how they're doing. Have conversations and understand that you're gonna have to meet somebody halfway. We all come from different backgrounds. I can tell you from myself, I was brought up in a culture where I'm supposed to put my head down and work. My work should speak for itself. I'm not supposed to be bragging about my achievements. For me to be able to get on this call today to even say that I know I'm a really good HR professional is very hard to say, and I'm sure my mother is having a moment somewhere on here. Just kidding, I'm just kidding. But, you know, have a conversation, and because you
Oh.
know,
Oh no! Zamina, we lost you again. Zamina, you're frozen.
am I frozen now? Can you see me? Can you see me waving my hand?
Now we do. Now we do.
Okay.
We heard you say have a conversation.
Have a conversation. Get to know your people and find out what it is that makes them tick and invest in them. And don't make them feel like a quota.
Thank you.